Dear Srimati Sonia Gandhi, it is with a lot of emotion that we welcome you here today at our India Economic Summit. And I would like to very, very warmly thank you for being with us. It's the first time, and we are absolutely delighted by your presence and, of course, very honored. When I say emotion, I mean it seriously and deeply because we have very deep souvenir and very precious souvenir of late Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, without whom we wouldn't be here maybe today, because it is with him in 1984 when he graciously invited us to come to India and extended his support to us that we came and started developing what is today a very important with 600 delegates. We remember him as a young, dynamic prime minister, and he had, I think, a vision for his country. And we remember three dimensions that he was very keen on. Was one, to make India a modern country. And his fascination for technology, I think, led India to become a very savvy, high-tech country. He also wanted to open the country, to put the country on the world agenda. And again here, I think it has happened. India is not on the global agenda. But he also wanted to have an equitable country, a country in which every Indian would participate in the success. I don't think India is yet achieved that. But now we have you. And we know that this is your main objective, your commitment. And we thank you for that. It's great for the country to have you, because indeed, everybody would like that every Indian is part of the success of India. And we know that you will always be there to make sure that this happens. So thank you very, very warmly for being with us. And I would like to invite Professor Klaus Schwab, Executive Chairman of the World Economic Forum, to extend his greetings to you.
Dear Madam Sonia Gandhi, on behalf of all of you, and also on behalf of our partners, the CII, I want to thank you sincerely for joining us today. Recently, you outlined the vision of India, which calls on the nation to be a global power for peace, for prosperity, and for progress. In doing so, you reminded us all that India beholds great potential to be a global force with a conscience when its leaders work together. One of the hallmarks of the World Economic Forum is its collaborative approach to some of the most pressing challenges facing the world, and particularly developing countries. Through our facilitation of multi-stakeholder partnerships between private, public, and non-government actors, we try to be a catalyst for increased private sector engagement in social transformation under a global and regional and national framework. In key areas such as education, water and health, the Forum's initiatives in supporting the policies and actions being undertaken by the Government of India. For example, 2 years ago we launched the India Business Alliance to Stop Tuberculosis together with CII, the Ministry of Health and WHO. Today, this initiative has 32 business partners, and I would like to thank you in the room for this partnership. We reach 4 million people, allowing for more than 7,000 patients to be treated. This underscores the World Economic Forum's commitment to applying the resources and competencies of the private sector towards a model of equitable social economic growth. In this way, Madam Sonia Gandhi, it is my hope that we can support your efforts in realizing the growth trajectory you envision for India. Thank you again for the privilege to have you with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Madam Sonia Gandhi.
Mr. Schwab, Mr. Shesasai, Mrs. Colette Mathur, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be with you this morning. Unfortunately, I cannot spend too much time because Parliament is in session. Thank Mrs. Colette Mathur for the warm words which she has and the warm sentiments that she has expressed about my husband. And I congratulate Dr. Schwab and his colleagues for their sustained interest in our country. I think, as was said just now, that it was my husband who launched your first meeting before here when you were the European Management Forum. And since then, you have moved on and become the World Economic Forum. We too have moved ahead, evoking new and increased interest in the world. I really congratulate you for instituting this award, which recognizes individuals and organizations who demonstrate deep social commitment. This is, I believe, very important because the economic growth we are experiencing must not be at the cost of social awareness and social responsibility. We have placed our economy on a high growth trajectory. Our businesses are showing a new zest for competition at home and are establishing their presence abroad. Our professionals in various fields are being recognized internationally. Our capabilities in science and technology are acclaimed. Indians living overseas are distinguishing themselves in different areas. Nevertheless, we still face some formidable challenges. Some years ago, I said somewhere, and I don't mind to repeat it, that while the world faces old age problems, India faces age-old problems. We still have a long way to go in elementary education, in primary health care, in nutrition, to name just 3 of the most pressing tasks before us. Of course, we have new concerns as well, as in HIV/AIDS, for instance, and terrorism. There are many Indias. There is an India of bursting growth, and there is an India of widespread want. There is an India of rapid economic advancement, but there is also an India of perpetual struggle. There is an India of new aspirations and self-confidence, but there is also an India burdened by unequal history and unequal opportunity. This is the reality of India, complex, varied, and full of contrasts. Even though we have improved our global ranking in the past decade, we are still very low in the UNDP's Development Index. And this should stir our global conscience and galvanize us into mounting a bigger, a more effective collective effort. While private initiative and enterprise expands, the primary responsibility for addressing these challenges remains that of the government. Public delivery systems will continue to be crucial for the vast majority of our people. We need investment in education, in nutrition, in health, for instance. In the last decade and a half, our economic reforms have drawn much attention, and rightly so. Less appreciated, though, has been the profound revolution at the grassroots, where we now have over 220,000 elected bodies in our villages, with around 2.7 million elected representatives, of whom about 1 million are women. Along with the establishment of panchayats, the flowering of women's self-help groups in different states of the country is becoming a movement. There are now 20 million of them linked with bank finance. The synergy of panchayats as institutions of democratic representation and self-help groups as networks of voluntary participation will, in my view, lead to total social transformation. But, of course, that is not enough. We need to tap the enormous creative energy in our civil society. We must harness the idealism, the motivation of those who want to improve the lives of our less privileged countrymen and countrywomen. Today, civil society is indeed active and vibrant, but that is largely on account of individual drive. And now, we talk of public-private partnership to build roads, to build highways, establish power stations and ports. Why not public civil society alliances in areas of social infrastructure? This is not to co-opt, but to work together. The government needs to create the framework to institutionalize this collaboration. The new Right to Information Act, which was passed 2 years ago, is a powerful tool which must be utilized to enforce a new culture of transparency and accountability. Indian business too, and I see many eminent industrialists here, has to be an integral part of such an alliance. I am aware, I think all of us are aware of the outstanding contribution in social development that some corporate groups have made over the decades. They have set an example that quite a few have followed in recent times. But I believe that there is need for a more meaningful and sustained commitment which will make a real difference. And I believe today we honor men and women who have set an example by their dedication. They have shown the way, they have made a difference, and we, of course, a very special applause goes to the winner of this award, which I believe will be soon announced. Thank you very much once again.
Madam Sonia Gandhi, you have spoken out of my heart. What we are trying to do with social entrepreneurship is to blend the best of what we find in business, what we find in the public governmental structure and in civil society. I'm often asked, what is a social entrepreneur? And because it's different from charity. And my short answer is, it's a blending of Mother Teresa and Bill Gates. Social entrepreneurs are different from business entrepreneurs in one very key way. Instead of seeking to accumulate wealth and increase their shareholders' return on investment, they see financial returns and financial support as a means to one end only, to transform and to serve society. For over 60, Schwab Foundation, which I set up 6 years ago, we have been selecting the best social entrepreneurs in the world in over 30 countries every year and building a community of practice amongst them. By the way, very inspired by our friend and foundation board member, Mohammed Yunus, who, as you all know, was the first shining example of social entrepreneurship. One of the main objectives of what we are doing is to disseminate the notion of entrepreneurship for sustainable development. Another objective is to engage business in a massive way in the support of social entrepreneurship. Our partner in India this year has been the Khemka Foundation, and I would like to use this occasion to thank the Khemka family for joining us in this effort, as well as CII and UNDP. Together, we launched the search and selection process in India to find the social entrepreneur of the year. Just one word for the selection process. We accepted nominations, anyone meeting the stringent criteria, and anyone could apply online. We went then through several selection rounds, including an on-site due diligence visit to choose 4 outstanding finalists. Let me present to you the finalists. The first one is Amitabha Sadangi Idei. It is, unfortunately, he is prevented by illness to be with us today. We want to recognize, or the Idei initiative is fostering the link between rural poverty and farmers' lack of, or is recognizing the link between rural poverty and farmers' lack of access to water. Idei designs, develops, and delivers small plot irrigation technologies that are commercially viable at 1/5 the cost of its competitors. The technologies are delivered through village market supply chains to farmers who earn less than $1 a day. The second winner, and I would like you just to stand up to be recognized because you are here in the room, is Padmadamba Rao and the Rishi Valley Institute. The river has revolutionized the education sector by throwing out textbooks and introducing the learning ladder, a method by which multiple grades are taught at multiple levels by one teacher effectively. They are serving 25,000 schools and are reaching 7.5 million students across 13 states. The next finalist is Vikram Akula of SKS Microfinance. The fourth finalist is Mr. Rajagopalan and Swati Bogle of Tide. Tide develops technologies such as stoves and dryers to dry betel nuts, fish, and Ayurvedic medicine to start rural enterprises. Not only do those technologies enable small entrepreneurs to increase their income and lift them above the poverty line, so particularly environmental friendly, reducing emissions by around 40%. They have been involved in 8,000 enterprises with 120,000 workers, and certainly have contributed in their own field a lot to social development. The finalists have been reviewed by a national selection committee composed by prominent personalities in business, media, and representing civil society. I'm now pleased to present the winner in India of the Social Entrepreneur Award of the Year. It's Vikram Akula, founder of SKS Microfinance. Please join us. First, a word about what makes Vikram a social entrepreneur and a role model not only for Indians but for people all over the world. This is a young man whose talents could have made him a business tycoon. Born, raised, and educated in the United States, he benefited from the best education that country had to offer, including an undergraduate degree at Tufts, a master's degree from Yale, and a PhD from University of Chicago. He was a Fulbright scholar and worked at McKinsey, but frequent travels to India throughout his youth to visit family exposed him to the appalling conditions in which so many of his Indian countrymen and women lived. And he resolved to apply his talents to helping them to do something about their situation. Today, SKS has provided over $110 million in loans to around 400,000 poor women in 11 states of India. If the average rural family size is 5 people, we are talking here about close to 2.5 million who have benefited from your services and your loans for income-generating activities. There are many microfinance organizations, but let's not forget, the challenge remains that only an estimated 14% of the market is served, or of the population is served. What is therefore needed are models that can scale fast and reach out to all. I have heard that your organization calls the Starbucks of microfinance, because you are using best practices and technology processes, and they are the base for your phenomenal growth. Since your organization has growth rates of over 300%. And by the way, when we met this morning, I had to correct all my figures already, because since 1 week, the data is already quite outdated. Now it's a great honor for me to invite Madam Sonia Gandhi to bestow the Award of Social Entrepreneur of the Year to Vikram Akula, founder of SKS Microfinance.
Honorable Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, Chairperson, United Progressive Alliance and President, Indian National Congress, friends, I offer my warm felicitations to the 2006 India Social Entrepreneur of the Year. I'm confident that such innovative entrepreneurship as has been awarded today will find replication and rollout for greater common good. It's an honor to share the dais with another dedicated social entrepreneur who has taken the leadership role in transforming the lives of hundreds of millions of Indian people. With her total commitment to the aspirations of the common man, the special guest today, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, has reoriented the direction of development in India and imparted meaning to the phrase of inclusive growth. Madam, may I also take pride in saying that just as late Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi launched the World Economic Forum, what was then the European Forum in India, which later has transformed into a powerful organization with the name of World Economic Forum, we also have the privilege that it was late Rajiv Gandhi who egged us on to transform ourselves from CEI, a Confederation of Engineering Industry, to Confederation of Indian Industry. And since then, we have also moved on. Which recognizes, honors the common men and women who are contributing through their ingenuity and intense work to inclusive growth, has chosen very appropriate winners today, and it's entirely apt that Mrs. Gandhi has presented this year's Indian Social Entrepreneur of the Year award. Madam, your sincere and words of inspiration today have been a great source of encouragement for all of us. May I thank you for graciously accepting to address us and giving out the award. Inclusive growth is not a mere slogan. It is the very purpose of political administration. And may I take this opportunity to say that the private sector will play its role, as you have asked us to do, to involve ourselves in the transformation, the social transformation of this country. The private sector has expanded its role in spheres outside its normal area of activity. Companies are deeply engaged in evolving solutions to issues traditionally considered outside the corporate role and in the domain of social sector. Such success stories, best practices in corporate involvement in the community are emerging every day, and the partnership between government, civil society, and industry is now getting to be very strong. As corporate activity matures and more of the economy is formalized into the organized sector, intensification of such engagement, partnership, will help reduce the burden on the public sector. A similar partnership is necessary in research and development to develop technology which would be appropriate to meet the needs and the aspirations of people at the bottom of the pyramid. A convergence of skills and technology through public-private cooperation would certainly place India firmly in the upper quadrant of the income and development graph. India's intrinsic abilities would then be commensurate with the knowledge economy of the future. Once again, I felicitate the award winners and offer my very sincere thanks to Mrs. Gandhi for honoring us with her presence this morning. Thank you. May I request all of you to be seated. The next session on smart growth will take place in this very hall. Before we close the session, we'd like to invite all the finalists of the Social Entrepreneur Year Award for a group photograph with our chief guest, Srimati Gandhi.